welcome to the Easily Excitable podcast. My name is Topham, and with me this week is Russell. Hey man, how's it going?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Thanks for having me, good sir. How are you?
No problem. Yeah, I'm doing fine. I've been binging Iron Fist, and so far I'm enjoying it.
Controversial opinion there, maybe?
I know, right? I know. I don't see what the fuss is about, but I'll probably go ahead and read some reviews later. But for now, I'm enjoying it, and I'm enjoying it, so that must mean it's okay, and I like it, I guess.
From my personal point of view, I found it was perfectly okay.
Uh-huh.
It probably suffered from the whitewashing allegations that kind
Uh,
of came out before it came out. So if you're probably watching it now when that's not in the news anymore, it's probably not
yeah.
in your mind. So you don't care too much about it, and you just watch it for what it actually is.
Yeah, that's certainly what I seem to be doing, and yeah. I like the action. The cuts could be a little longer, and they could have done a bit more action, from what I can tell, but I'm enjoying everything else. The story's enjoyable, and yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes. So I think I've just finished watching episode 7,
Okay.
and I probably started watching it on Thursday or Friday. I can't remember which. Might have
Okay.
even been midweek as well. And then I played some games with some people. But yeah, I've been watching that. How have you been? Have you been keeping busy? I know it's been not particularly long since I've had you on the podcast, but there has been something that's happened since then.
Yes, I have been keeping myself rather busy. One specific weekend in general, I was very busy because obviously, as you know and you're alluded to, sir,
hmm
RTX London happened as recorded the previous couple of weekends ago now, and I had the good fortune of being a guardian during that event, which was a first for me after being out to Austin a couple of times, once as a regular attendee and once as a VIP. I thought it was
hmm
the chance to kind of sample that, and it's a great experience. It's not, it's weird, kind of like volunteering for something. I've done like
Yeah.
volunteer work at another point, but it really felt weird of kind of going. You really felt part of a community of like a couple of hundred people trying to make sure that an event happened that you would have wanted to attend to, but you're trying to make sure that other people can have fun who are attending to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that,
Cool.
but yeah,
Um,
it was. I don't know what you've either seen or heard in the ether from people who attended, or the Twitter sphere, or the Facebook sphere of the event.
yeah, I've heard some things. Like in relation to the event itself, it didn't sound like it was all that amazing. It sounded like, yes, it was a novelty, and people had a good time, but most of that good time came from meeting up with friends and having a good time that way, whereas the event itself was a bit lackluster.
Now that's something that I can kind of agree with, and I think you have. So effectively, there was the main expo hall, which had
hmm
like the other RTXs, you had the store, you had other stalls around. There was kind of a fairly big then Nintendo Switch area, and then
hmm
there was the main stage in kind of like the main expo hall.
Yeah.
Then actually all the autograph stuff was just off to the side of that, still actually in the same hall. And
hmm
then you had one other separate panel hall just right next to it, and another separate panel hall up the stairs. And so
hmm
effectively, so there was two panel halls and the main stage. So
hmm
effectively, with things kind of like being on the panel halls on like a rotating kind of like hour on, hour off, just so you can get people in and out,
Yeah.
it kind of meant that I think one of the panel halls was about 400 people and the other one was closer to maybe 1,000.
hmm
So if you look at the projected ticket numbers, which was about somewhere between 8.5 and 10,000 people per day,
Uh-huh.
it's kind of then goes to what were they expecting the people to do the whole
hmm
entire day? Which other one is like every time I've gone to RTX, kind of we've been there. I've only been there for the last 2 years, so it's been a fifth year and 6 year thing, and they've got a
Yeah.
lot more halls going on with a lot more different panels going on, so you can make use of your time a bit more if you're not catching up with friends or doing that, which is,
Yeah.
I would say, although it is what I think is one of the greatest aspects of like RTX is it gets all the fans together and you make new friends when you queue for things and you make kind of like you'll meet up with new people, and
Yeah.
that's great. I do definitely agree with the idea that I just don't quite think that there was enough there. And we'll see kind of like, I think it was attended well, how well everything sold out. I would be very surprised if it doesn't come back, be it next year or the year afterwards, depending on obviously other things. But
Yeah.
I think there are definitely some things to learn from it. I think it suffered from the usual first day issues where things that maybe have not been, questions that have not been asked, which probably could have been asked, which I know we discussed when we were talking about the
RTX Austin.
RTX Austin. There was issues where they didn't know where to queue people for like one of the panel rooms, so they were queuing them in the main concourse in the Excel Center, which would be too much of an issue if the only thing that was going on in the Excel Center at the time was RTX, but it wasn't. There was at least 3 other expos going on at the same time and one big other expo going on the opposite side for a salon convention. So effectively, the actual security people for the Excel were just like, you can't like block up the walkways with your queues. So I had to kind of get another one of like the open areas kind of like opened up, which would be kind of like maybe where like MCM would have been like some more of the open area for that was then just opened up so people could queue in it effectively. And it just seemed to me that that sort of thing might and probably should have been had a solution for it before it happened.
Yeah.
But on the whole, I think it went down okay. I know there were people who had gripes. I know that there were things that went well, but I think the overwhelming majority of people I think had a good time, which is a good sign.
Yeah, that's important that people did have a good time. How was your experience of it from a Guardian's perspective?
So yeah, that's it. It's definitely a unique experience. It's kind of, I was working on the response team, so that effectively meant that we were sent when people needed like multiple extra hands for a certain scenario. So effectively, like, it started off with Saturday morning, just pretty much having to move all these people that were in a queue in a certain situation and put them somewhere else, but still manage to kind of keep them in the queue that they had already kind of made themselves, so people weren't upset that they'd queued for some time and then it completely been lost.
Yeah.
And then I spent a good hour kind of telling people, queue to over here if you want to get your registration, go over here if you want to enter that. And due to response, you do different things, like the whole entire day. I ended up managing a queue on the floor for when Jeremy turned up to actually just do some signatures and take photos with people. So I enjoyed it mainly because I would say 90% of the people that I spoke to were just like, would just kind of say nod. I'd say kind of like, then like, of the 10% that didn't were like, oh, thank you very much, so that's exactly what I needed. So I would say like 1 in 10 people, when you gave them some instructions, which you were hoping to try and help them with, actually said thank you and kind of move on. And it was a very kind of like overwhelming thing to kind of have that much kind of positive kind of like thank you back from some of the people. I had one personal experience where I had some proper twats, but who were just like effing and jeffing at a small Guardian girl who was just kind of, and just had to kind of come in and get involved and just kind of like take them away to the side and then give them to one of the more head Guardians to speak to, because it was just effectively, it was not right. I wouldn't like want anybody behaving that way to an individual in any circumstance, but yeah, it's weird, kind of like you go in there on as a Guardian, you go in the day before, you do like an orientation to kind of know what you've got to do, you learn your teams, you learn your specific kind of like roles, do some efficient bag packing so everybody has what they need. Obviously the the team that's part of the backpacking then spontaneously goes into song every now and then, so you end up with 40 to 50 people singing Bohemian Rhapsody or Smash Mouth or I mean, to varying levels of ability.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
But it was a real bonding kind of like exercise between those people. Kind of, I've definitely made friends from doing that, who I'm still talking to kind of like now a couple of weeks later that I weren't talking to before. So
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's cool.
and it's definitely put in my mind of trying to see what guardianing is like in RTX.
Yeah. Uh-huh. There's a question that I had that I'd forgotten, which is why I immediately went on to this. But did the issues that had arisen on day 1 get fixed for day 2? Or did they persist over the weekend? Especially like with RTX in Austin, you've got 3 days where usually, typically on the first day, there's less people, so they'll fix it for days 2 and 3.
Yeah.
Whereas this is only in London was only a 2-day event, so
Yeah,
they
so
had limited time to fix any of the issues. And
I think the main issue got sorted was about the queuing for that one panel room, and I think that got sorted like on that morning. So by the afternoon, that was a far better kind of like system. I think one of the other issues that I didn't mention earlier on was the main stage area and the fact that they chose to put the podcast and off topic on the main stage area within the expo hall, and now those seats are always just, they're never kind of, you've got to get up and go out after every single kind of like panel, because they're just kind of in there to kind of like sit and consume the whole entire day. So there was a reasonable number of disgruntled people kind of going like, well, why aren't they getting out of their seat kind of after each show on the main stage?
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people understood that like on the second day, which meant that it wasn't an issue. People got what was kind of going on in that room. They got that with the panel rooms, you were taken in and you were taken out, but kind of in the main central hall, that wasn't an issue. So I don't think there was any big issues on day 2, which is always a good sign. And there was obviously like small things here or there, especially with Miles and Jeremy popping up out of nowhere trying to do signings in the middle of places where you're just like, please, we told you there's a room where you can go do some like, when the registration hall had closed at like 1 p.m. on Sunday, we were just like, if you want to go do anything impromptu, just say, hey, come to the registration room, because there'll be nothing in there, and so people can come there and not be out of the way. And it was still just like, I didn't listen. It's now just kind of like slowly escorting them into that room so things can be done better. But no, I think it worked well. I think the one thing I've learned is that because effectively you had like a panel room and then the room that people to go into kind of like that panel, we then got people milling around the room that you would queue in for when the queue was about to start for the thing that they wanted to see.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, so you're queuing to queue to watch, but like that queue was never under our control, so we kept on going out and tell people like you can stand around here, but you can't basically obstruct kind of like this way. Like the security from like the XL every now and then would walk down and say like there's too many people hanging around here, and it's like, guys, you've got to disperse. Like this will open up in like 20 minutes when we move all those people into that other room, but you can't just hang around this corridor. I think the only one which that kind of like, I think the Ruby panel on the Saturday and the Funhouse panel on the Sunday, that was the only ones where that really kind of came close to being an issue, but I don't think it was.
No, fair enough. Certainly seems like a better way to handle things, saying you can only queue up from 1 hour before or something like that. Saying
we ended up basically going with, as soon as the room was available, that we were doing the queuing in. So it was a kind of like whenever
so I guess it would be about a 2 hour.
Yeah, so whenever like the panel before started.
Yep.
Then that room, effective, so like 5-10 minutes after that, that room we were queuing people in was be available and clear, and then we can just load more people into it. So I think a lot of people got that by the end of Sunday, but because there were so many different ways of queuing on the Saturday morning, people and Saturday afternoon, people were just in a little bit of limbo about what was going on. I think the other issue, which I personally had, was obviously it's something to try and be inclusive, but like they give out like medical wristbands, which is not something I was ever aware of, kind of like being attendee before. But like for
Yeah.
some people who kind of like either like can't queue or wheelchairs or something like that, they give them out like medical wristbands, and effectively as a kind of guardian, you're supposed to kind of like treat them almost like a VIP when it comes to kind of queuing, because it's like some of them either can't stand around for 20 minutes or like 2 hours, or can't wait in a queue for medical reasons.
Hmm.
And we had a few issues of kind of going like, you had one person who had a medical wristband, and another person was saying, well, I'm the carer for this person, and it was like, okay, well, at registration you should have said that, and you should have been given a medical wristband as well,
Hmm.
so you could then kind of come in together. And it's kind of going like, I don't want to be telling you that I don't believe you,
Yeah.
but it's kind of, I don't believe you. And I just think I was just slightly abused in some circumstances, and then I think slightly, I don't know if they knew how many people were going to do that, if they kind of beforehand had said, like, you can kind of declare this beforehand, or whether you declare it like on the day and you get like a
Hmm.
medical wristband or not, because not knowing the number of people that were going to do that meant that kind of sometimes by the end of the week, we were holding back a lot more spaces for like for the medical wristband than we were, or the end of the weekend we were holding a lot more spaces back for that than we were for like the first few panels.
Ah, right. Hmm. Ah,
But it's
fair
one of those
enough.
ones where you're trying to be inclusive, you're
Yep.
trying to kind of do the right thing, and
Hmm.
I think 95% of the people who were doing that were doing the right thing. It just seemed there's always that 5% that maybe were trying to be a little bit cheeky.
Hmm. Okay. So, I guess in comparison to RTX Austin, it's on a completely separate level.
Oh,
The
completely and utterly separate as far as I'm concerned. It's weird also for me because like when I go to Austin, I almost don't go to any of the main panels. So
uh huh. Uh huh.
I kind of go to a lot of the like the post production panels, or like the
Yeah.
animation panels, or the
Hmm.
production team panels, and hear them talk about kind of like the stories that have happened with them, because a lot of the time with like the main cast, a lot of their stories have been talked about either on podcast or on other things, or to be honest, those panels then might get like repeated as the actual podcast for that week, or the actual off topic for that week.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
I feel less kind of like missing those ones directly out. I prefer the ones which I feel are just going to be a straight up kind of like conversation piece, or show some content which is never going to be shown. So if you go to like the post production one, or if you go to the live action one, or if you go to an animation one, you will see something that won't ever be shown.
Yeah. Hmm.
Like, I love going to the last two times I loved the RTAA ones, because effectively there's like a special RTAA which won't ever be shown because it's either like copyrighted material. Usually it's effectively it's a song. It has been for the
Hmm.
last few years, and it was Gus doing the pen pineapple pen uh,
Hmm. Yeah.
RTX this year. So
Oh dear.
and that was and that was amusing. And but kind of like there was like 25, 30 staff that came over, and it was pretty much all like the main forward-facing staff,
Yeah.
and then you had your obviously your people who were the events team and like the marketing team, which are involved with that. They were over as well, and then uh, Adam Baird was also over as well, just because like technical setup for a lot
Yeah.
of things. So
Cool. Cool.
yeah, it was definitely smaller. I think it could grow exponentially if they manage it properly.
Yeah. Hmm.
Like,
How much of the space were they using in the Excel? Because I've been there plenty for MCM, and that takes up nearly the whole space, the whole of the center.
so yeah, so
But
kind of, I would say, so effectively it had the Platinum Suite upstairs,
hmm.
which is one of the ones that obviously like MCM uses for one of their kind of like suites, but then effectively it had from kind of N3 to N5,
Hmm.
so like three of the sections, so kind of like 3, 4,
Three,
5,
4, and 5. Hmm.
with 5 being turned into like an expo, I mean a panel
Yeah.
room.
Hall.
and then effectively we were queuing people in N6 and N2 to go into places.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So floor-wise, it was kind of like it was very small compared to MCM.
Yeah, maybe like that sounds about like 20-25% of the floor space.
Yeah, I would say like I think a quarter is a good estimate of the floor space used up for MCM.
Well, there's 20 different divisions. You've got N1 to 10 and S1 to 10. So
yeah.
If you're using 5, I reckon, you've got about a quarter of the space that they're probably using. But some of the areas are bigger than others.
Yeah.
So,
I would say you're kind of looking at you're looking at 3 which they're actually using and 2 which we were kind of partially using to kind of queue people up in. So if they want to continue to use the XL, then there's exponential growth there, and I think that's one of the main reasons why they chose the XL over other places in London, because something of that scale could have been done in like Tobacco Dock or like Billingsgate Market or any of those ones on that scale, and it could have felt maybe a lot more personal and a lot cleaner individual event. Yeah, but there's like no scope for expansion at those places. So
that's actually the question I was actually going to lead on to next anyway, as to how the XL served as a venue. But like,
I think the XL, like you've been there before, I've been there plenty of times before. It's even this year with one of the DLRs on one end being closed, there's still the one on the other end of the expo hall. That's how wonderfully long it is. There's a DLR on either station on either side of it, so there was no issues with that. DLR's dead easy to get anyone to if you're wherever you're staying in London. It's kind of like it's an easy thing to get to, so I don't think anybody really had issues with that. I did hear about a few people complaining about the salon guests who were at the other con or the other convention that was going on, either not quite get what was going on or saying, oh, look at those weird people over there, but it's a bit of a culture clash, so I can imagine that kind of it's going to happen to some regards. I had, when I was just handing out instructions to people, I had at least, I would say 7 or 8 people from the salon thing come over and ask questions about Rooster Teeth, or say, what is RTX? And just kind of explain to them, and just like, oh, that's cool. So you can like, love all the costumes. So it's kind of just what you get from it. I think the XL Centre is where they're going to do it if they can, if they do continue to do it, because they've had presence there before with MCM, so they know the way it works. They've done it this year, and I think if internally with Rooster Teeth, if they're happy with what went on, which I think they are, because when we had the Guardian debrief, they were like, this is the best first one we've done. So
that's cool.
And even a few of them, a few of the head Guardians from Austin were like, this is better than kind of like maybe kind of like 2 or 3 in Austin as well. So cool. They're the people with the experience to know kind of like how good it was, whether it was more platitudes just to thank all the Guardians for doing a good job, or whether it was actual genuine feedback. I don't know, but you'll take the platitudes. I think it has the chance for near exponential growth. It could definitely accommodate everything which they do at Austin right now. In one location, instead of being split over a few different hotels like they have at the moment in Austin. Like the XL Centre could do that all.
Yes.
It's just the logistics of getting everything for kind of like Rooster Teeth over to the UK. Because effectively, if they did that, you'd almost have to either preload everything for a good like couple of days before and a couple of days afterwards, so everybody could travel over, or you'd have to think about being able to film things in the UK at the same time, which then just becomes a different logistical nightmare.
Yeah. Cool. Well, it certainly sounds like it was an interesting and like a definitively learning experience for Rooster Teeth. I know that they've been doing it in Sydney as well. They've done 2 in Sydney so far, I think, and the next one's the 3rd.
Yep.
So that's cool. MCM's this weekend. Are you going along to that, or is it RTX was on, so we saw all the people? Who cares about MCM now?
Yeah, I don't even think there's kind of like a. There probably is like an event for from the group, but I kind of like haven't looked at it. I was kind of this was my extended long weekend to catch up with
Hmm.
everybody, and kind of doing it a couple of weeks later is it's doable.
Hmm.
I might pop down on the Sunday if there are. I might look to see if there are some still kind of like tickets available and just pop down on the Sunday and have a walk
Yeah.
around,
Hmm.
see what it's like. But to me, that was half the reason why I would go to MCM is kind of catch up with everybody.
Yeah. Hmm.
It's sometimes there probably end up being a couple of panels that I would go and have a look at, and
Hmm.
you'd wander around the stores and maybe buy one or two things. But I've got to the point now where after going to those places, I know the names of those companies and just buy the stuff online now instead of picking it up at like
Yeah.
at an MCM. So it's kind of like I've got 3 or 4 t-shirt companies that I will kind of like buy things from, or
Hmm.
if I want to get some sort of like figurine, or I generally don't get figurines, but if you want to get something that's actually licensed and merchant like licensed materials,
Yep.
I'm a little bit of a stickler for that, which is kind of quite bad in some of those circumstances. It's kind of I know that kind of like you have like free reign to kind of do parody and kind of make things off that, but I'm a little bit of kind of yeah, you're using someone else's copyright material to kind of make money when I'm pretty certain that you're not giving any money towards that company for
Yeah.
actually doing it. So
Hmm. Yeah,
um
that's one of my things about it, but that's fine. Yeah, no, I like. I'm glad that there's an RTX there now to get the community all involved and together, and the fact that there seems to be. I don't know. I haven't seen anything about MCM, and that kind of that to me seems like the a defining feature of this year for Rooster Teeth, and the fan base in
yeah,
the UK to say, yeah, we don't have to go to another company's thing. We've got our own event now, so
yeah,
that's certainly cool.
yeah. I think the one thing that is just it definitely loses out further to Austin is just it's not in the centre of London. There's not much actually near the XL Centre.
Mm-hmm.
So you
Mm-hmm.
want to go for a drink afterwards, you're basically left with either going to the hotel which you're at
Mm-hmm.
and going to the bar in that hotel. If you're
Mm-hmm.
staying in like in an Airbnb, then maybe inviting a few friends back to yours, but then you can't really do that with that many people. Or you have the
Yeah.
Fox and Custom House, which are basically 2 pubs. One which kind of like the arty fans had kind of taken over in Custom House, but that's a smallish pub, and then the Fox where there's more room. Seemingly they completely misunderstood the number of people that they needed behind the bar for that weekend because it was just horrendous queues the whole entire time. There is every single time I've ever gone to that place. It's like it doesn't understand the volume of people that go through the door for the XL Centre.
Yeah.
It's like they're not in cahoots, or I said cahoots. That's probably not the word. They're not kind of like communicating with each other. But it's called like the
Yeah.
Fox at the XL, so it makes me think that they should like
Yeah.
know kind
They
of like,
should
hey,
know what's going
how
on.
many thousand people are, what's the footfall for kind of like this event? Like, which events kind of make more people come to the bar? But
Yeah. Yeah. I just had something in my head that I wanted to ask, but I can't think of it now. Um, but yeah.
because they took the VIP party to
Uh
the
huh.
Hollywood Bowl in O2,
Uh huh.
so that's kind of like a bar with like a bowling alley, kind of like in the O2. So
Yeah. Aye.
that was quite amusing because after I'd done my drinking and was making my way back, like I saw Gavin, just
Nice.
a
Nice.
wild Gavin, as they say.
Mm-hmm. So the thing about it as well, I've just thought of this is the thing that I lost from my head, but now it was the fact that they were over in Europe
Yep.
doing an event. Was there much of an international or European demographic there, or was it mostly British English people?
I'm gonna say that personally, they
Mm-hmm.
were the people that I interacted with were mostly English. I'm definitely gonna say there were definitely seemingly like Dutch, German, quite a few Irish people over.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Uh, the issue with that is kind of like sometimes I can only tell kind of like by accents and whether I'm
Accents.
stereotyping with some of these people, but
Yeah.
I definitely met like a couple of girls who were over from Sweden, which was kind
Mm-hmm.
of so there was definitely a few. I think from what I talked to some of the people at the VIP party, that I think quite a few of the VIPs were foreign.
Okay.
So I think
Oh, that's
a
cool.
lot of them are maybe kind of bought in for the experience to kind of say, well, if I'm going to do this, let's do it kind of to the best it can be. So
Yeah. Oh, that's
but
cool. That's cool. I was very, I don't know. I don't want to say cautious, but like, not optimistic that it wouldn't be anything but British.
I
So
would still say you're talking. I would say 95% of the people, at least,
okay.
were British of varying degrees. There was definitely a reasonable number of Northerners and Scottish people down who making a
Yeah.
fair old journey, which is actually technically more of a journey than some of the people who'd probably come from France or Germany to get to London is kind of
Yeah, that's
is
true.
actually
Yeah.
because if you take a freaking train, it's going to be probably the same time as taking the Eurostar,
Yeah,
or
if
if
you're
you
going from
fly.
like Aberdeen, that's a 10-hour journey down to London.
Yeah.
At the best of times on like 2 connecting direct trains. So
Yeah, or you
you know,
fly.
yeah, or you fly. But yeah, if you're traveling down by train, it's just as quick to go to Texas. Nearly, it's just like by train or by plane in the same amount of time you can get to Texas as you can to London by train from like Aberdeen. That's insane. Anyway, yeah. So cool. So overall, it was all right, but like there's obvious improvements that need to be made. But you know they'll have that in hand. It's a learning experience. It was the first one they've done in London, and it was overall a positive experience. Is what it sounds like.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. I think there are definitely things that could be improved on without too much effort. But it's then just kind of like how much does it scale up next year? Because depending on how much they scale up, obviously causes new issues, and that's something that happens at every RTX, as we discovered in Austin this year. That it's 6 years on, and something new gets thrown at you, which can throw everything you know out the door. So it's kind of they'll learn, I think, from doing things in Sydney, and if they continue to do 3 things a year, there's going to be other things that they'll learn from each one of those that'll get them smoother and smoother and smoother. But we'll see, because they're still obviously talking about. I spoke to Eric, I think, who's the one ahead of like the either sales team or the merchant, about kind of like the UK Europe distributor, because they're still struggling basically to get a decent distributor in Europe effectively. So because it meant that like they ended up using like this guy called Cam, who did all the stuff like with RTX Austin, the company that he works with that did RTX Sydney, ended up helping out doing a lot of things for RTX London. So I don't know if they have like a location in the UK as well, or whether they just kind of went, yeah, we've done it over here, so let's just take it over there as well and just work with them again. So
one question that springs into mind is, much like they have packs across the United States, can you see RTX being a sort of global equivalent? Or do you think they will limit it at the 3 that they've currently got?
I don't. I think they will expand.
Yeah.
I think
Same here.
I think you're probably going to get a Canadian one next, or something that's kind of in that kind of Toronto sort of area that can get like the east coast, or like the northeast coast of the US kind of fairly simpler, and then maybe the people that want to come over from Europe easier. I think kind of if you've got London as a hub for Europe, you already have Austin, which is like the central hub. You've got Sydney, which, okay, that basically gives you Australia and New Zealand.
But not much else.
But not much else. But effectively,
and New Zealand's still like a few hour flight away as well.
Yeah.
Which is what I did not. I thought it was like an hour flight, and then someone was like, I was on a 4-hour flight between Australia and New Zealand. I was like, oh gosh.
If you look at kind of like just the global market of, I don't know obviously where the consumers for RT are, but just thinking about that, like, it's not big enough in Japan yet to kind of go over and do an expo in Japan, and it won't be for, obviously Ruby's getting bigger over there in certain regards, but
Yeah.
you get a lot of things would kind of fall on the wayside because of like the language barrier, and like panels would have to be done with kind of like translations in between, which just make panels a lot worse. I don't know if you've ever been to ones where they've had like a Japanese or a Chinese kind of person on, and you've had to kind of had them like everything be translated kind of like to and from.
I've not experienced that, but I can imagine it's
slow. It just slows everything down, and you kind of get a little bit of delayed reaction. You don't quite get that honest talking kind of going across because you get the translator's version of what has been said as well. So if there's maybe a mishap or they said something silly, the translator may just kind of ignore it or not say exactly what they said. So
yeah,
I think
fair enough.
I think an East Coast / Canadian one would probably be next.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, I was totally just thinking that they could expand, but yeah.
The point is about what they want to compete with.
Because they've got PAX in the States that they're not necessarily competing with because they're still going along to the PAX events.
Yeah.
But actually, PAX is just about to have PAX Australia, isn't it?
Yep.
Because Bernie and Ashley are going to be there, and Ellie posted an Instagram about it today. Okay. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, but Penny Arcade seems to have fallen by the wayside, and PAX just be an event unto itself.
Yeah. So like PAX seemingly has taken kind of these kind of it's slightly absorbed cons in different areas and just kind of like taken them over. Because you did used to have like Supernova as well in Australia, so I don't know if that still kind of goes ahead, but.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything of Supernova since RT have been like, oh, we're doing RTX, but that was because RTX, Rooster Teeth would be like, oh, yeah, we're going to go to Supernova. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's the other thing is you've got to think at locations where they actually still go to the conventions with a reasonable RT presence, and not just oh, here's some of the Ruby people or here's a couple of people. Where have they actually gone and had like a proper presence, which would be?
Yeah, I can't think of near.
PAX is basically like the two PAXs, so like it's kind of like something out in California and something out in kind of the New England territory. I think is where they might expand because that's where they go, and obviously they have a fair part of the Let's Play family exists out in California, so they could do more things with Kind of Funny or Funhouse, or I think Sugar Pine 7 are based out that way as well.
Yeah, I think they are because they've done a few videos with Funhouse and they just pop up from time to time over there, from what I can tell. But I don't really know much about Sugar Pine 7.
I don't either. I've honestly not watched a single video, which is kind of like
I've watched one video and I can't even remember what it was. I think they went with Funhouse to the beach, but that might have been a Funhouse video, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's one of those ones where like I've not watched any of it. Like people say it's good, and like I kind of should watch it. And it's like there's already too much content that I want to consume to kind of let something else kind of come in and maybe take time from other things. But B, it's kind of like if it's kind of it seems, and I may be completely nutty wrong, that it's kind of spoof reality. Where it's kind of, if that is really that, I know that genre is basically not for me, but based on previous things. Well, this may be the exception. There's always something in every genre which you dislike, but there's something out there that's actually quite good that you will enjoy. But I don't think that one is personally for me. Yeah, but I won't go out there and go, look, oh, Sugar Pine 7 is fucking awful. I can't believe these children are watching this. It's the most disgusting scum I've seen on the internet. Yeah. That's what you do. Somebody else likes something, as long as it doesn't hurt anybody, it's fine. I can't believe it's a mentality that other people don't have.
I know, right? It's just, it's ludicrous. Oh, well. Cool. Well, Russell, where can we find you across the internet?
You can find me on all gaming-related things with the gamer tag of Russman2K and Twitter at @Esom.
Awesome. I can be found across the internet at Destroy Top and More at Ethafar. That's YTHAFAR. Yeah. Thank you very much for being my guest this week, Russell.
Thank you very much for having me, sir, as always. It has been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's been a good time. And thank you everyone for listening. Have an exciting week. Goodbye.
Goodbye.